Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Welcome back to the show. We are joined once again by Rebecca Grotte from Houston, Texas. She's the owner of her own company called Avondale Design Studio, and that's also the website, avondaledesignstudio.com. We're talking residential and like commercial.
Sorry, I'm having a hard time hearing you.
Oh, hello. Avondale Design Studio. Can you hear me now?
Let me see.
Yep, we're good on my end. Levels look.
Oh, okay. I can hear you now. Okay.
Well, welcome to the show. Let's start off with you. Please say hello to everyone and tell us a little bit about the work you do.
Okay, my name is Rebecca Grotte, and I'm an interior designer here in Houston, Texas. And that's what I do. I work in people's homes to make their homes beautiful.
Perfect. So give us, from start to finish, right? Explain the interior design process. Could you just share a little bit about the types of things you do work on specifically?
Sure. So the process of design, the way that I approach design is I approach it with the fundamentals of building a solid plan with space planning, construction. So basically doing the blueprint of the space before going on to adding all the bells and whistles. So I start basically with the architectural plan of the house, or so just planning the function first and then planning the style. So that's the way that I design.
Interesting. Now we're talking bathrooms, kitchens, any type of interior design work you're an expert in. Share a little bit, again, each and every week as new listeners. So tell me a little about your design background, which is always important to get to know you further.
Okay, so I went to school at Houston Community College for interior design. That's where I studied interior design. And so I've been working. I went to school from, I guess it was like, gosh, it was a while, 2011 to 2014. And then since 2014, I've been in the working with Avondale Design Studio. I was a design assistant first, and then I became a partner eventually. So I've worked in the same studio the whole time.
Ah, great. And you obviously have a knack for what you do. There's some great pictures on the website if you want to check out some of the before and afters. So what did you want to share with your audience today about you and your work? What did you have in mind?
So today I wanted to specifically talk about kitchen remodeling because that seems to be a hot topic that everybody wants to talk about. Everybody wants their kitchen to be beautiful. So because there's so many different facets of design that I work with, it's hard to talk about it all as one large thing. I kind of have to break it down because there are so many different things that we do as interior designers. So I figured that today's episode should be focused on kitchen remodeling and construction.
Perfect. Let's do it. We love kitchen redesign and construction. I think we talked about it last time. It's just like everyone during COVID was home living in the kitchen, realizing my kitchen's too small. This is a big, like, let's make it a bigger space because people are hanging out there, eating, drinking, doing dinner, doing homework, conversation. It's like the hub of the house. So
Yes,
go ahead.
exactly. So yeah, you're right on. The kitchen is the heart of the home, and it's the gathering place. It's where we host others. It's where we serve others. It's where we eat and drink and be merry together, as a family or as friends. So it is the hub of a lot of what goes on in the house. So that's why, having our kitchens to be a reflection of who we are as a family is important. I mean, as a mother of two boys, I know how important it is for me because they're hungry all the time, and they always have their friends over, and they always, so it's a very important place specifically as a mother, I know a lot of mothers don't cook too, but I do. I like to cook, and I like to share that type of thing with my family. So um, it's just the kitchen is a reflection of how we interact with each other, I guess, is the point. So where would you like to start?
Well, and you tell me, how does it work? What is the process? Are you picking out appliances first, cabinets first? You got to design the space. I don't even know. I'm curious because I want to design
Mhm.
my kitchen one day, but it looks like there's some walls I want to knock down. So where
Right.
does the person start? You have to have a vision of what in particular.
Okay, so what I do if I'm remodeling a kitchen, I go into the home. Sometimes people will have their own blueprints, like from when they had the home built. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes it's an older home, and we have to actually go in and take a measuring tape to every nook and cranny to redraw the floor print or the blueprint of the kitchen. And then again, like you said, that sometimes people will want to knock a wall out or do
Yeah. How do you know if
this
that
or that.
wall, you can do that or not?
Right. So that's why we start with just the plan of the kitchen first, so that we can make sure that we know exactly where everything's at. And then if it requires a wall to be knocked out or whatever, then that's where the engineers come in, where they're the ones that have to say, okay, we can or we can't do this. This is a load bearing wall, or we're going to have to return a beam into the ceiling. So that's where a different set of experts come in. We can help uh, bring the vision, but as far as architectural, like um, the structure of the place, if we're suggesting to do something like that, that's where engineers and architects are part of our team, I guess you would say. We lean on them because they're the experts in that field. So we all have to work together as designers, architects, engineers. So that's ideally that's what we like to do.
Hmm. And now, once you have a vision, though, it's what do you need to start the process? You do the measurements, right?
Mhm.
And then do you have to give them samples? Do you suggest they go to stores and start looking around at cabinets, appliances? How does that work? Or do you bring that stuff to them? How does,
So that's what they pay us as designers to do. So my job is, then once we get the floor plan drawn, then we draw elevations which show like the cabinets and everything, and they choose basically between the designer and the homeowner. We choose which plan is the best for their family.
hmm
And then once we do that, then the next assignment is to start to choose materials, and create basically a color story in the kitchen. Now, sometimes, most of the time, that's going to include the color story of an adjacent room. So it all goes together, or it transitions well from dining room to living room. So that's my job as the expert, is to go and source materials. We go to our trade resources. We basically come up with a material palette and a color palette for our clients, because there's so many different materials out there. There's about a billion choices. So
hmm
so that's really where a lot of people have a hard time, is narrowing in. There are so many choices. What do I choose? And that's where we come in as the expert
Yeah.
to help them through that process, and to weed out things that are either they don't fit the color story, or maybe it's out of budget. Maybe
hmm
we're working on a budget that is, there's a big range of budget too. So like some people have the budget for high end materials, some people have the budget for lower end materials, But either way, you can create a beautiful kitchen on a decent budget. It doesn't have to be the most expensive thing out there because there's so many different materials. So that's really where our job is, to help rein in all the ideas and kind of
Well, let me
sift through it.
let me ask you this. I mean, cabinets, the biggest part of the kitchen, right? I mean, that they're all structurally round, so they have to be good quality. Like my house, when I moved in to my home, it was 20 something years old, but the builder redid it quick to sell it, right? So I have like cheap kitchen cabinets. And after 2 years, now it's been 5 years, but like the water from the sink has now chipped away all the cabinets, right? So that's like a cheap. What, even if
Yes,
you're on a budget, what type of cabinet should you have? Or are all cabinets going to get warped like that? Is there, I don't know, are they wood? Is it, what type of materials are these cabinets built from? Could you give me a little, like a little knowledge? I guess it's
sure.
good for the homeowner to listen. What type of cabinets are out there?
So there's a big range of cabinets too, because uh, for the same reasons, for budget reasons. So on the lower end is where you're going to get the cabinets that are not, that are, maybe they're faced with a veneer, but the center of them are made of MDF or particle board, something that is, if it gets wet, it expands. So
Yes.
so that's what, a lot of times, if you're seeing that type of thing happening, is because it's not a solid uh, material. So, I mean, even wood, real wood and solid wood does expand and contract.
Uh,
But if it's not, if it's made of something like MDF, it actually will puff, and it does weird things. It warps if there's a
quicker.
leak.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. So
So
there's
building
solid. So
materials,
you
yeah,
suggest buying solid wood, like what? Now there's probably different wood grades, right?
yes, yes. And that's where, yes, you're going to end up spending the most money on your cabinets if you're going for longevity in your kitchen. So a lot of times people will look at the price tag of those things
Go.
and think, oh my goodness, this is way more expensive than I thought it was going to be. But you have to think of it as investing in, are you investing in 5-year kitchen, or are you investing in a 35-year kitchen? So like those are those are things that you have to weigh as a homeowner. Am I doing this just so I can turn around and sell it in 2 years? Which maybe you would choose something that's not as
Yeah,
expensive.
that's what my guy did, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, but there's different reasons why people do that. But then, is this my forever home and I'm gonna be here for 25 more years? Then you may consider, okay, we need to buy materials that are gonna last that long. So those are there's different reasons why people choose certain materials. But of course, if you're going for if you're going to spend the money, this is just how I my philosophy on it. If you're going to spend the time and the money to create this beautiful space in your home, to make your home more functional for yourself and for your family, it's worth it to spend more on something that's going to last longer.
Yeah,
But that, I mean, that's my philosophy. But again, not everybody has the budget to do that.
I got it. Yep, absolutely. True. Okay.
Mhm.
And what about, because then, the cabinet's important. So, like, is it oak? Is it, what types of wood are we dealing with when it comes to cabinetry?
So there's all different types. So a lot of times there'll be oak or maple. Maple is a popular one. Walnut. They have just every type of wood. They've got
Okay. So,
cabinets, but
what's
most of them, I
most
would say
popular would
that
be,
most of popular are like maple and oak.
okay, interesting. Good to know. So, once you moved on, you picked out your cabinets. What happens next for the kitchen? What else? Are we looking at the appliances, or do we look at the floors first? I forgot about the floors, right? Because you're putting the cabinets on top of the floor.
Yeah, so we there's so that's all part of it. We have to look at all of them together, and that's why we bring in the palette. So like we would bring in the tile for the floor if we're doing tile, or maybe we're doing wood. I don't know. It depends on the kitchen. But we bring all those materials together and make sure that they all work well together as far as a color palette. And so it'll be like if we're using tile, say for example, tile for the floor, tile for your backsplash, tile for decorative tile, maybe for behind the stove. Um, so all of those building materials are part of like the building color palette, I guess you could say. The wood for the cabinet. Some people would choose to paint their cabinets. So those are all of those materials are part of basically like a color palette story. And yeah, that's how construction works. So like if, say for example, we're remodeling, it's going to get real messy first. They have to tear everything out, so, and then, it depends on the project. Sometimes everything gets torn out and they're basically starting with a new design. And then other projects, maybe they're just refinishing everything. Maybe they're just putting new tile, putting new cabinets, and keeping the same floor plan. So it gets real messy first. They have to tear everything out first, and then they start to rebuild it. And that's where, I guess it can be a misconception a lot of times that like, you want this beautiful thing, but this is a process that takes a long time sometimes. That, once you get into construction, the construction process itself can be frustrating. It can be really messy. It can be, there's a lot of, it can be very stressful. And that's, I think, a reality of construction that some people don't quite understand. That it's stressful if you're actually living in the house, depending on how fast your contractors are working, and um, and then construction, again, with timelines, everything is affected by shipping, or say if you're getting materials that are not sourced in the United States, they may take a few months to get, I mean, the good thing is now shipping is back to where it was like pre-COVID. Like we're not having as many problems with that as we were for a while. But everything is basically like a domino effect on logistics when it comes to construction. So that's sort of why it is good to hire a designer to help those people through that process of logistics too, because sometimes we may come up with this beautiful palette and then there'll be this one thing that's gonna, oh well, we can't get that for 6 months. Somebody might not want to wait 6 months to get that material. They want to start their project now, so that's where we come in and kind of help guide them through that process, because sometimes not things get discontinued. That's the reality of the business. Or something could get stuck in Europe on its way here, and we don't have control of that. So those are things to also, like, for us as designers, is just to help people have more realistic expectations around what it really means to go through a construction project. Because sometimes, we look at, I guess as Americans, we look at show like HGTV, and I love HGTV, but sometimes it gives this perception that it happens like with the snap of a finger, and that's really not the way that construction happens, because everybody's on a timeline and everybody is affected by the logistics of getting materials, and then having those materials installed, your installers schedules. These people are busy too. So, you know, the, the, the construction crews also are working, they could be working on 5 projects at a time too. So, you know, the scheduling of those things, and that's really, you know, that's a reality of what construction is, you know,
Well,
especially in whenever you're working with a large home and a lot of materials.
now, what else did you want to share about the kitchen process? Obviously, then that's our focus today. We still got 7 minutes left. What else is important when you're thinking about remodeling, redoing the kitchen?
Well, I think that overall it's important to think through how you live, how you really live, because everything, you know, like, do you cook a lot? Some people don't cook a lot, but they just want their kitchen to be nice, and that's cool. Some people do, and like, you have to think through, how do you use your kitchen? How does your family, you know, how do you operate in your kitchen? Do you like to
Mm-hmm.
host people? Do you need seating for 8 people at your dining? Like, say some kitchens have a large island. Do you need seating for 6 people? Do you only need seating for 2 or 3 people?
Mm-hmm.
You know, it depends on your family size. Um, and do you have a collection? Do you collect china, for example? Do you want to display your beautiful china? What So those are all things that people, whenever they're thinking about remodeling, those are the type of things that we as designers have to ask and try to get all of those answers and gather that information from our clients, so that we can make their kitchen a reflection of who they are. You know, maybe they have a collection, a beautiful collection um, of liquor bottles or something. Like, sometimes people like to have a
Yep.
beautiful display um, of glasses,
Mm-hmm.
maybe martini glasses or wine glasses, and then, you know, beautiful glassware. A lot of people love that stuff. So sometimes we will work in those type of things into the design, because that's how they entertain. So,
Interesting.
or how do you need a lot of space in your pantry?
Mm-hmm.
Do you have a lot of do you do you have dogs? Maybe you need a lot of extra space for dog food, or for whatever, or maybe you are a meal prepper. Maybe you need a space
Mm-hmm.
um, to put all of your containers. So, like, in the kitchen specifically, you have to think through, like, what is your lifestyle? You know, or everybody has different things that they do in life, and so um, those are really the things that you want to think about if you're thinking about remodeling your kitchen. How do you want to use your kitchen? Do you and Okay, so another example, like for me, I'm really short. So I'm only I'm like right under 5 feet.
Okay, you
And
can't tell we're sitting, right?
so for me, having a microwave that's high doesn't make sense for me,
Mm-hmm.
because I try to be on my tippy toes trying to reach something that's hot coming out of a microwave. You know, I can hurt myself. But you can also have a microwave installed into your lower cabinets.
Okay.
A lot of people don't realize that you can do that. Like, I'm short. I don't like to have to reach all the way to the top cabinet, to have to go get a ladder to go and get that thing. So there's also ergonomics too
Yep.
that you can think about if you're the main person working in that kitchen.
True.
Do you need things that pull out from below, or do you need them overhead? Sometimes tall people will need them all overhead because it's easier for them to reach. So, we have opposite problems. I need things low, tall people need things high. So, those are all things that you can think about whenever you're thinking about remodeling your kitchen. And then there's also, are you bound to a wheelchair? Do you need extra space in your aisle to make sure that your wheelchair can get around every place in your kitchen? Because not everybody, some people need extra space. Maybe you need an extra wide aisle to go in and out of your kitchen easily. So those are all different things that are to consider if you're going to take on the project of remodeling a kitchen.
Thank you. And if we want to reach out to you for a consultation, could you share your contact information?
Sure. My email address is Rebecca@AvondaleDesignStudio.com, and my website is www.AvondaleDesignStudio.com.
Perfect. And you do offer an initial consultation if someone's interested in speaking with you?
Yes.
Perfect. And just to point out, the areas you work in again mostly are?
Houston and Galveston. We live between Houston and Galveston, so those are the areas of my.
Available for consults, obviously online as well. You could work virtually, you mentioned, right? All right. Thank you so much, Rebecca. Pleasure having you here. Thank you for your insight on the big remodel of the kitchen, something that I think a lot of us can relate to and I'm dreaming about. So it's good to start getting tips, ideas, and to find out, the protocol for it. Well, thank you again. Have a fantastic day. And to all of our listeners and viewers, stay tuned. More of the show is on the way.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house. And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned. This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.